Why, hello there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Mr. Dogboat333 and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order as Mexico. Now last time we were here together, well, we started working on some trade relations with the Americans, and they are going very well. For the Americans, at least. U.S. proposal strength has 3, which if we get it above 4, they'll probably back us at any rate. Anyway, but if we get it over 5, that's going to embolden the leftist and the nationalist, which I think is what we want to have happen. So, you know, what are you going to do there? And I'm trying to figure out where we're going to visit. Now, who's in Zacatecas? I don't think we've done San Luis Potosi. San Luis Potosi City, or often just SLP, unsurprisingly serves the capital of the state of San Luis Potosi. The name of both city and state is half derived from Louis IX, the saint and king of France, and half confusingly derived from the Bolivian city of Potosi, the logic of that being based around the hope that the nearby mines would become as deep and rich as the famously wealthy mines of Potosi, Bolivia. The sprawling city is home and host to some of the key elements of the Mexican manufacturing industry. It is positioned at the heart of a triangle formed by Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey, have secured its place as an economically vital city with a high standard of living. Historically, the region has been referenced to as El Gran Tunal, or the Great Prickly Pear, due to the force with which the native people resisted the Spanish tide. And while the city is far from the days of conquistador and missionary, the people of SLP still hold their head high with pride in their city. It's a wonder that a city sat atop the mountainous Mexican plateau can still be known as a vibrant Ciudad de los Jardines. City of Gardens, I think? Visit Zacatecas. Let's do Aguascalientes. In the sweeping valley of Aguascalientes lies the city of Aguascalientes, capital of the state of the very same name. The name translates to hot waters, deriving from the location of the city itself. Within the valley lies an abundance of hot springs dotting the mountains of the Bajío. Founded in 1575 by a group of Spanish adventurers, its original purpose was to protect the roads connecting the massive mines of central Mexico. Over the ensuing centuries, the city grew from its original purpose as its population swelled. Under the Porfiriato, it saw an industrial boom. Yet its place in history was cemented in 1914 by the Convention of Aguascalientes, which sought to unite the revolutionaries of Mexico under one banner. Today, Aguascalientes continues much as it had before, with the economy rolling smoothly along as it benefits from its enviable position within the prosperous Bajío and its centrality. Only time will tell if Aguascalientes' history will continue to be a ceaseless march of progress, or if history shall take a sharp turn. Guess we'll have to find out. I thought Mexico just kind of doesn't care about the Thunderdome in Colombia, even though it's right just south. Yeah, well, I guess from my understanding... Actually, I don't know much about the Colombian lore, so I can't really comment. Yeah, Colombia seems like a mess right now. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Adolfo, began Castro, and thank you for accommodating my busy schedule. Lopez Mateos knew of the Cuban leader's nocturnal habits, but a midnight meeting was certainly a stretch. The mug of black coffee was held as tightly in his left hand as the telephone receiver was in his right. Pulling the latter closer to his mouth, "Certainly, Fidel. Captain Gutierrez informs me that you're considering action against the Trujillo regime. What is your plan? And what are you asking of us?" "A coup. We want both Trujillo and Batista in coffins, and the rest of the regime swept away. It's splintering, Adolfo. Civilian leaders and generals are already covertly reaching out to our assets and yours. We push, and the rest of the rats jump overboard." El Comandante continued, "My request is to establish an office for joint intelligence operations in Havana. Tomorrow morning, Captain Gutierrez will send you the brief of the Oficina Conjunta de Asuntos Externos, or OCA, as we've been calling it. The value of our Dominican network would grow exponentially if we tie them together. This joint Office of Foreign Affairs would also provide a single point of contact as we coordinate with internal dissidents and exiles like the June 14th movement and help organize the Caribbean Legion. Lopez Mateos had been sneaking a surreptitious swig of coffee, just as Gutierrez had apparently been sneaking around with Castro and going around the chain of command. Their choice of allies was worrisome too. Here in Mexico, the Caribbean Legion were kept under tight watch, but who knows what those squabbling crypto-communists will get up to in Hispaniola. But if anyone could overthrow a monstrous Caribbean dictator, it was these two, and Gutierrez could be counted on to keep the radicals in check. You have Mexico's support, Fidel. I'll approve the OK. And Captain Gutierrez will have leeway and funds he needs. We're avenging 48, no matter the cost. Decision now is Trujillo will be unlocked. We received 25 command power to conduct Dominican operations. New page will be added. Global conflicts decision page. Look at that. So foreign policy, right? Let's show all these. Huh. So, the Dominican Republic is Latin America's American harbor for the world's most vile ideology. It's made attempts in the past to support various fascist factions in our home. This cannot stand. Together with our allies in America and Cuba, we shall create a multinational invasion force so that we may crush Mexico's enemies abroad. Interesting indeed. So, Mexican-American cooperation is currently non-existent. Forces would occupy Trujillo and the fascist regime, but rules of the Dominican Republic are not from one nation to several. The relationship between Mexico and the U.S. will be especially important in working out what will become of the Caribbean's last dictatorship should it fall. Okay. Okay, so we can create some opinion of Salinas or Ordaz, depending. You can only do one or the other, it seems. Okay, let's start with cruising the Caribbean. Get a little bit of operational strength. Let's coordinate with DGI. Could organize some dissidents. Always a classic. Let's get training bases in Yucatan. The Yucatan Peninsula is closest to our country gets to the Dominican Republic. Bases here would allow us to intensively train the Legion in secrecy thanks to its remoteness. The local geography provides an opportunity to faster acclimate the troops for the Caribbean humidity, heat, and climate patterns. I think that makes perfect sense. We'll get that going. And let's get working on... Let's prepare Cuban intervention. And we'll open legionary offices in Veracruz as well. The fact the U.S. can stab you in the back and make a deal with Trujillo's second in command once the invasion happens. Oh, they better fucking not. I'm guessing why that's probably why we're going to want to get working on Mexican-American cooperation on this. So we're going to have to start setting up political power. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not quite sure how long we have. Well, we have 180 days. There we go. I was about to ask how long we have. We have a couple, about half a year. Hold on. Down with Faustino. Down with fascism! A derisive call erupted from a particularly passionate student of the Autonomous University of Puebla. All around, the long-haired student, other like-minded youth echoed his statement with gusto. These students were a diverse collection of the left-wing community. Communists with PCM, MLN, and other student protest groups. Across the campus square, a group of equally young partisans marched with signs and chants that espoused their ideological opposite of their leftist counterparts. Despite their differences, both groups gathered for the same reason. The unpopular interim governor, Faustino Ortega, had recently installed a new dean, one who lacked the tact, expertise, skill, or policy that the student population desired. The young men and women of Puebla simply wanted to be heard and Ortega out of power. They just happened to disagree on everything else. Look at them, Raul. See how they invoke fascism to get their point across? On the right hand of the picket line, a short-haired student complained to his friend. A wooden crucifix hung heavy around his neck as he gripped his placard like a bat. They don't know the first thing about fascism. If it were up to those communists, they would erase everything and make our nation great. All for their immoral laziness. As the two groups churned in their ideology fervor, the sun beat down on the open square. A silent line of police watched on, sure in their power. The politically powerless students shouted and marched throughout the day. However, new orders arrived from the governor. All disruptions were to be removed from campus. When the sun went down, the line smashed against the undisciplined students. The two groups mixed and clashed under the weight of the law. Shouting and jeering became shoving, and then the first strike. The silent Raul took his friend's placard and shouted over the head of another protester. There was nothing left to do as violence spread out among the crowd. By the time the police could react, a full riot had already erupted. Within hours, the events of AUP had reached the ears of the president. Oh boy. Nazi terrorist plot busted in Uruguay. Jesus. Come on, there's Che Guevara. As President Lopez Mateos' trip to the U.S. drew closer, the topic of Mexican oil reserves became particularly contentious in the president's cabinet. Currently sitting in the two seats across from the president's desk were Secretaries Ordaz and Salinas, passionately debating one of the most controversial issues of the day. We are far better off without American aid in developing our own oil reserves, Salinas stated, his voice portraying an air of confidence. The truth of the matter is simply this. We stand to lose much more than we gain if we invite American companies and experts to extract our own resources. An awkward silence hung in the air briefly before Ordaz began to make his rebuttal. Nobody's advocating giving them unfettered access to our oil wells. However, it would be equally foolish to believe that we have nothing to gain at all from limited and cautious American aid. They have a tremendous amount of capital at their command, experts and equipment which could speed this process up greatly. All we have to do is approach this with them carefully. At this point, both men looked towards the president for a final decision on the matter. Well, I'm curious, does this reduce the proposal strength of the U.S.? I assume it probably does. I don't know if I want to lose all of the loyalty of these guys. Oh, it's a tough one. I'll save real quick, and I'll see if this reduces any of the U.S. proposals. If that's just like the reduction of that. If it does, I imagine we have plenty of other opportunities. To get that back up. We don't have Pan American highways, that's going to have to help. helps Salinas, which isn't great. No. But I'm sure there are going to be other opportunities to increase Salinas' involvement. Salinas is right. It'd be foolish to get the Americans involved in the proposal. So let's see. Okay, so it does reduce it by 1. Well, I could have handed over the Americans to invite over the Americans to invest in our oil. Salinas made a very good point. In our hands, we control where all the money goes, even if we make slightly less. Our domestic oil industry ensures that our energy and exports remain in our hands, not that of our dominating neighbors. Good thinking, Salinas. I think that helps with the party. I do want to keep the party somewhat happy. Was the Venezuelan connection due to the Caribbean Legion? Let me check that. I'll check that after this. I read this. Rain, so typical of Hispaniolan summer, pelted down on the Jeep's windshield. The mind of First Lieutenant Amado Garcia Guerrero turned the swirling chaos of cowering and parting droplets into himself and Luisa dancing the meringue. Second Lieutenant Garcia had proposed to her, his love, prepared to have her wit and slender form with him until his dying day. And then this morning he'd been summoned to an audience with El Jefe, told under Trujillo's fearsome gaze that Luisa's brother was a communist and that he would need to find another woman. Shuddering, he had agreed and filed out. Before his tears could pour as heavily as it ran outside, Amado had been whisked away to the headquarters of the Military Intelligence Service, or SEAM. There, Colonel Johnny Abbas, that bloated toad of a secret police chief, toasted him with whiskey and let him know of his early promotion for loyalty and service to El Jefe. But there was one final test, appropriate for members of El Jefe's personal guard. One Colonel Abbas was driving him towards, piggish eyes fixed on the winding road, to kill a traitor with his own hands, without trembling. And so the jeep slowed to a halt beside a rocky cliff, and Abbas gestured to get out. From the back, guards pulled a jagged and shoeless young man and threw him to his feet, facing black sky and sea. The world slowed. Amado could shoot the guards, and... no, Abbas would just kill him and the prisoner. And so, at the colonel's orders, Amado drew his gun, stepped forward, and pulled a bullet in the back of the traitor's head without trembling. The guards threw the body to the sharks, and Abbas took the lieutenant to celebrate his promotion with drinks and whores. But as Amado confessed it all to El Turco days later, he couldn't stop trembling. Luis's brother had disappeared. Yikes. Alright, foreign policy, Venezuelan connection. Increases Mexican-American cooperation, it looks like. And it decreases tensions with the moderates. I think we're going to want to save up to get that. Winston Scott enjoyed Chapultepec more upon every visit. Yes, it was not pleasure, but business that had drawn him to the zoo, to its off-side enclosure at 1540 on a Sunday. He would not tell that to his family, gawking intently at a jaguar habitat away. The FBI bureau chief would not tell that to anyone. Winston caught sight of Litempo 1. No one would mistake his informant for a beauty, though he certainly was an improvement over his uncle. He approached wordlessly and offered a fat envelope of pesos. Litempo 1 kept a barely perceivable nod and thrust the money into his coat. Keeping his eyes fixed on the dozing mother ocelot and her kitten, he also accepted the follow-up, an innocuous brown bag. A brown bag containing a short note. Give it to your uncle. And a host of Colt 223 rounds rolling at the bottom. Litempo 2 will know what it means. Ooh, okay. So this is all interesting. If the initial invasion is successful, the leftists and nationalists will receive an opinion boost. Let's boost up the Cubans, then. We need more political support to help out with the Venezuelan connection. We'll hold off on that. Let's get another focus going. Pan American highways. There have been dreams of a single great highway network connecting Alaska to Tierra del Fuego since the first Pan American Conference in 1889. Some efforts were started in the 30s to construct this network, but the catastrophe of the Second World War, resulting economic fallout, led to both the U.S. and Canada abandoning the project. Remember to check supply and brigade count, since too many will hurt it. I'll keep that in mind. Such a network would surely promote greater economic ties between our countries. Perhaps now is the time to convince our neighbors to give another try. It might be a pipe dream for now, but we should still approach the Americans about giving consideration towards the idea, so that we can at least look forward to better connections in the future. I assume you kept up with the news. President Mateos dropped a week-old newspaper into his desk, quickly replacing it in sand with a nice glass of ice water. The front-page article was on the recent student protests of the Autonomous University of Puebla. I understand these rights are a headache I can ill afford. I've kept an eye on it, Your Excellency. I'm ashamed of the insubordination of the youth of my home state. Division General Antonio Nava Castillo was a sturdy man with thick eyebrows and dark hair. An experienced military man and politician, he could guess why he had been personally called into the president's office. Of course, I have full faith in Governor Ortega's ability to sort it all out. Castillo had spent enough time in the PRI's bureaucratic machine to know that the party should always support itself, even if he personally thought everything Ortega was doing was wrong. And if you were in his position, you can speak with me. Honestly, General. Mateos placed down his drink and gestured to Castillo to sit down. You see, the party's lost faith in Ortega's ability to govern, and therefore he's lost the privilege of appointing a successor. The choice is now up to me. If I may be frank, sir, I believe a more direct approach is required for these subversives. We've tried with velvet glove. It's time for an iron fist. Mateos allowed himself a small smile. You read my mind, General. Man of your expertise is precisely what Puebla needs right now. If you choose to run, you and your administration will have my full support. Castillo smiled back. This was just the chance he'd been waiting for. With the president's support, the election would be formality. Becoming the governor of Puebla would be the final peak in his long career. It would be my honor, Your Excellency. Oh, there goes Briatia. Alright, we'll see in 30 days how the supply is holding up. What a way to treat a former ally. Alright, let's cruise the Caribbean. And then get that Venezuelan connection going. Mexican-American cooperation is currently poor. British strength is currently king and needs to be as high as possible. I figured as much. 10 million to 5 command power, that's not too bad a trade-off. We can get that going. Same with infiltrate agents. Secretary of National Defense General Jose Agustin Olacha Alivez stood, hands clasped behind his waist and back ramrod straight, before President Lopez Mateos. Your Excellency. In accordance with the 1957 Air Force Modernization Plan, General Fierro Villalobos and I recommend the purchase of 60 Lockheed F-33A jets. The model exceeds expectations last year's tests and will deter and address threats from Guatemala and the Dominican Republic. Fierro, the trim aviator, to Olecha's right, nodded him solemnly. Very well, said Lopez Mateos, loud secretary. Was this a leader Mexico needed? A voice that conveyed calm authority, a mind whose flexibility and durability had proven throughout the triumphs and tragedies of the Revolution's wars. Eyes that had seen from the rocky coast of the Baja to the palaces of the Federal District. Eyes that held the fire of the Revolution that would never let dim. But no, those eyes were encased in a nest of wrinkles, the mustache and hair bleached white by decades of service. Now, the time for generals to lead had come and gone. Mateo spoke again, perhaps with an edge. Is that all, General? Given the continued threat posed by Guatemalan and the recommended difficulty in projecting force across the southern border, we also recommend the creation of multiple helicopter-based rapid response squadrons. We have prepared a brief report detailing our proposed order. Lopez Mateo's grimaces reviewed the numbers involved. This is a significant addition to the budget, generals, and a provocation for Guatemala with Trujillo so active. This is no time for further tensions there. He paused for a moment to speak with the gravitas these men narrated. But if helicopters are needed as well, so be it. The world awaits with bated breath. Looks so good so far. Surely Nixon won't stabs in the back. He would never do that. I imagine not. Tricky Dick wouldn't do that, right? For the past 2 weeks, Antonio Imbert, Tony, to his 3 friends, had worked diligently decomposing gun after gun and placing their parts and ammos in crates to be taken to the quarries. His own piece was at his side with safety off. Guarine and Leslie were sent to the countryside for their safety. Such had been the appropriate measure when he expected the black Volkswagens of Ciudad Trujillo's Calles to arrive at any moment at the ready mix factory. But the regime's Calles had not come, and so Tony stepped out of his office, mind brimming with questions. His accomplices in the assassination plot been seized. They had helped him smuggle the dynamite out of the quarries he'd managed for Trujillo's family. Were they holding out on torture? The young men and women from the June 14th meetings he went to had been arrested. Had they simply forgotten Tony, a quiet man who kept to the back? Now the material evidence of his support for the movement was hidden deep in the quarries, but could he ever be safe again? Not so long as Trujillo lived, and so, once the semblance of his normal life resumed, once of safety clicked back on and his wife and daughter returned to Ciudad Trujillo, Tony drove to the house of Salvador Estrella Sathala, El Turco, to his many friends, and confessed everything. And just as Tony hoped of his best friend, El Turco answered, "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" Alright, let's cooperate with the DGI again. That's worked pretty well, I think. Two of the federal district's leading spies sat at a table length apart. Washington's man, Winston Scott, was voluble, speaking in Spanish at length about the U.S.'s planned naval and aviation support for the Puerto Plata landing. For memory, he laid out targets of saboteurs that would spring into action once the Caribbean Legion got to shore. The capstone was a plot to coup Trujillo and usher in a joint civil-military government. Winston claimed that high-ranking military officials were prepared to move as soon as El Jefe was dead. And it wouldn't be of old age. The FBI had smuggled in M14 rifles and $1,000 to a group of insiders, including a member of Trujillo's personal guard. At last point, Mexico's Fernando Gutierrez Barrios broke his silence. Mato Garcia Guerrero. The DF is likewise supplying that group through General Diaz, though we've prioritized connecting them with sympathetic regime members rather than providing material. To Winston's cocked eyebrow, he responded, "A different Diaz Modesto, and another well-placed man who saved Juan Bosch's life." "Interesting," Winston replied, drumming his fingers on the table. "And how could the FBI be of assistance to the DFS? We're working to coordinate the various June 14th cells into a broader uprising. If your saboteurs prioritize disrupting SIM communications around Santiago the day of the invasion, I anticipate the successful seizure of the city center. The Legion will then have a clear path of advance towards Ciudad Trujillo. The tempo continues to bear fruit. Mexican-American cooperation increases and command power +5. It's still poor, but it's getting better. I think we'll work on saving up and then we'll probably cruise the Caribbean next. Maybe work with the FBI that gives orders an extra opinion, though. That's my fear there. That's something we have to keep in mind. It's also something we'll have to worry about next time. I'm going to go ahead and leave things there, my friends, but thank you guys for watching. Like I said, if you liked, dislike, if you didn't leave any comments, feedback down in the comment section below. I read all comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Check out my various links down in the description box below. Leave me comments, feedback down in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.